Everybody. My name is Tim Hansen. I'm a senior consultant with Leyton. Welcome everyone to the R&D Tax Credit for A&E firms, how to accelerate your COVID-19 recovery. I certainly want to, thank our, our partners at TriNet. Paul Hermes, he's a senior business consultant at TriNet, and also Ben Fraden is also a senior business consultant at TriNet. They both are focused uniquely on professional services vertical, specifically with A&E firms. So we'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about TriNet at the end of our discussion, R&D Tax Credit. We also want to thank Ignacio Centrago, pardon me, who's one of our technical consultants at Leyton, who has a great background in architecture and engineering firms, both as a consultant at Leyton and previously working in the industry. So he's our main feature, and we look forward to picking his brain and discussing with Ignacio in more detail how A&E firms can benefit from the R&D tax credit to help their businesses grow and contain costs. So with that, let me talk a little bit just about the process here for today, and quickly our disclosure. Let me get my screen to change here for us. So we will be recording this the presentation for hopefully share with other clients and customers and partners in the industry. And again, this presentation is for education purposes only. We want to make sure people are aware of the benefits of looking at innovation tax incentives. And as TriNet as a partner is also here to talk to more about how we can both partner together with TriNet services as well as with Leyton. And so what will be covered here today will be a number of things. Number one, introduction to Leyton and to TriNet. We'll be able to talk about, overview of the R&D tax credit, the four-part test, the mechanics of it really. And then, diving into, as I mentioned, how that four-part test, what qualified activities fall into the category of architectural and engineering firms, which is essential to the conversation here today. And Ignacio is our resident expert there, as I mentioned. And then more importantly, just have a chance to have a discussion asking questions of Ignacio on your businesses, some projects you're working on for our audience. So we certainly want to make this interactive. And then we'll be able to wrap it up with a little bit more information on TriNet and what their HR services provide. So with that, let me, before I get talking about the R&D tax credit, I do want to mention, I had the privilege of working at TriNet for about 5 years. And, I'm glad to partner with TriNet because I think when you think about making your business grow, controlling HR costs, running a compliant business, there are a lot of similarities between what TriNet provides to customers in terms of the benefit piece is one part of it, but really, having a sound HR team behind you. And when I talk about Leyton with companies, we want to give companies the maximum R&D tax credit, but also we want to make it compliant. And I think that's where there's a lot of synergy between TriNet and Leyton is, we want to help you maximize your business, do well, be competitive, beat the competition, frankly, but also run a compliant business. Have that peace of mind that there's not going to be an exposure there for you. And as we know, whether it's HR or an audit, those are areas you want to make sure you're covered. So I'm glad to present, solutions and partners for both of those areas that are important to your business. So let's talk about the R&D tax credit. I think it's the biggest kept public knowledge of IRS ever, because and we're here to change that, to make sure people understand how much it applies to businesses and people don't even consider it. So the research and development tax credit, the R&D tax credit, is a permanent government incentive. It's been in the books since 1981. It was amended with additional payroll tax credit in 2015 called the PATH Act. And that's, again, to help companies who are not profitable to get a benefit of the R&D tax credit. The R&D tax credit rewards companies for creating and innovating new technologies. And we'll get into the four-part test. But, the idea is if you are paying your employees in a technical role to create unique solutions, techniques, in some cases with the architectural engineering firms we talk to, and they are US based, 1099s as well. You're leveraging subject matter experts when it comes to materials. Those are all flags that should indicate I need to look at possible benefit from the R&D tax credit perspective on my P&L spend. And it's not, as it's pointed out here, it's not just big pharma or people in lab coats who are going to be performing R&D related activities. It's anyone handling technical challenges and performing those duties that we talked about. So when you say, like, show me the R&D, where is it coming from? What qualifies it? And essentially, no matter what industry you're in, what business, that it all starts with the 4-part test and determining what your employees are doing on a day-to-day basis that might relate to the 4-part test. And again, this 4-part test, you can go to irs.gov, you can Google it, it's out there. The key is, knowing the 4-part test is one thing, or conceptually understanding it. What we find as clients really struggle with, before they talk to Leyton, is translating that 4-part test into your business. And that's one of the key things we want to cover today, is making sure, as you are, building those projects and you have engineers working on new solutions and architects dealing with city planners and trying to get approvals, that a lot of those activities are going to be related to possible, R&D benefit. And it comes back to this 4-part test here. So again, you're making something. It's a process, it's a technique, it's a formula, it's a software. To get there, it's going to be technical in nature. And that scientists apply. Some businesses we talk to have both technical and scientific applications in nature in order as a means to get to their desired scalable product or process. And the means is, of course, experimentations. It's, going through the iterations that's required to fulfill, the end result that you're looking for. And obviously, to get there, it's an elimination of uncertainty, right? And all that would fall under tackling technical challenges. And then the question, the clients will ask us is, once we kind of talk about the 4-part test in their business and looking a little deeper into what they do, is, okay, what can be claimed and what can't be claimed? So I want to certainly make sure we spend a little time on that on a kind of a universal level. So number one, the biggest driver for any business is going to be your salaries for your employees and your benefit costs. And again, but we can we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But, as a business owner, as a principal of a business, this has got to be the area you want to get the most out of. So number one is people directly involved supporting or supervising those R&D related activities. Your W-2 employees, you, the owner, the president, CEO can be involved. We have different roles, as well as supportive roles. You have an administrative office person helping, a junior designer, et cetera. Those are all related costs. And again, the subcontracted costs come into it. And there are different percentages that qualify, and that's probably maybe a second deeper conversation, but we just kind of want to give you the bucket of costs that we would want to look into and explore. And this is kind of where the Leyton methodology is different, and this is where we drive the value and the compliance. And I'm sure we can talk a little more about it with Ignacio later. Again, other costs are raw materials and supplies, particularly in building, whether it's commercial or, private homes, whatever the case might be. There's going to be plenty of materials in architectural design and delivery. And then, of course, using technology. This could be cloud services, that could be, CAD programs you're purchasing for a project. These are all areas that we would look into to substantiate qualified research expenses for your business. And, when we look at kind of the payoff here, we're quoting, Jerry Maguire, show me the money, show me the quan. Well, it applies in a couple different ways. So again, if you are paying income tax or you have people on payroll and they are doing this, R&D related activity, creating a new or improved business component, there are two ways that it would end up applying. Number one is a payroll tax credit. That's, companies not profitable, but again, they have the spend, they have the burn rate on that, but they don't have a tax liability, but they have payroll. So payroll would be one avenue we would look at, and that's the more amended of the R&D tax credit benefits from 2015. The one that's been in the books that the large companies have been taking advantage of for decades, since the 80s, is the federal. And there's federal and in-state R&D tax credit. The in-state R&D tax credit does vary by state. So for purposes of our conversation, to keep it simple, we'd focus on federal. If when we engage with a company, if you were operating in California, Oregon, Washington, or whatever variety of states, we will certainly examine the benefits of any in-state R&D tax credit for your business. But on the federal level, it's universal. It doesn't matter as long as you are working in the U.S.-based employees, it applies. And it does. One of the advantages is you have a tax liability, you are profitable, and you can look back retroactively at 3 years. So in some cases, we have companies see a significant return because they've been burning cash for 3 years, getting to a solution, a technique. Now they're profitable. They have a client list growing, and they're able to go back and recoup that money spent. In some cases, sunk costs when it comes to particularly architectural engineering design plans. So that's really the advantage, and we want to make sure companies do, number one, get the maximum value, but also make it compliant. And to talk now more specifically about the A&E firm, what qualifies for R&D tax credit, and it's really a self-test almost. Are you doing any of the following, and are you developing new designs or improving existing designs? That's certainly one thing. Now we're in California here. We see a lot of companies that have environmental specific requirements by city and by state for their designs and for their delivery. Certainly LEED certifications is standard practice now. And then of course, businesses that are more niche focused, alternative structural designs, and as well as, developing in some cases, water flow and plumbing systems, again, in terms of cost efficiency and green technology. And then of course, the lighting, all those things that we've seen change in our world in terms of making things more efficient, but also better for the environment. All that would add up to how your designs have changed and really your proposals and what the requirements are. Those are all areas we would delve into in great detail when looking at your business and your projects that you're working on. So a little quick overview on the process itself. Did I miss something here? No, sorry, good. So we want to kind of give you a quick little synopsis of the process for us. And, certainly this is more of a later conversation, take a deeper dive, but, our focus, much like TriNet, is the idea is minimal disruptive claiming. So we are talking with businesses they're busy, that are delivering projects, that have engineers that are working hard. You're trying to win bids, you're trying to deal with the city. So we totally get that. And like TriNet, when we engage with a company, our idea is we do this all the time. We help you figure things out with the R&D tax credit. So it's really a data dump on us, so we can come back and then work with you with a minimal amount of your time, but also providing you, at the end of the day, a technical report, a real narrative behind your spend, but also, making it very, really a streamlined process. So your business continues. We want to enhance your business. So your business won't come to a grinding halt to go through an R&D tax credit evaluation, just the opposite. We're going to help you accelerate. Same with TriNet. When TriNet engages with the company, large companies, I can personally attest to it. We would not, take away from them in terms of their time, but actually, at the end of the day, try to improve their ability to have more time, not waste time on tasks that are not related to the fundamentals. So, and certainly, we can talk more about that in individual conversations. So before we kind of pass it off here to talk to Ignacio and hopefully get some questions from the audience, just real quick. So Leyton's been around in the world globally. We've been a business consultancy for over 20 plus years. So we're a major player, especially in the European markets. We're in 11 different countries. In the US here, we've been a specialist in this niche tax credit for now about 3 years. And, again, what we find is companies are either undervalued or more often than not have never done an evaluation. This is across all different industries. So we are doing things like this webinar, partnering with TriNet, so we make sure that companies are educated on the opportunities for, benefiting from the money you're already spending that could be, recouped through the R&D tax credit. And so with that, I certainly want to bring in our specialist here, Ignacio Centrago. He's been with TriNet now for several years. He's our lead when it comes to any A&E firm that would engage with us. And how we work at Leyton is we determine where a company is in terms of the vertical or industry, and we have our tax folks and every tax person I work with on the Leyton team on the West Coast is from the Big Four. So these are professionals, and we also have legal tax experts based on our East Coast team. And then when we are looking at a software company or a life science company, we have technical people who specialize in those areas. And Ignacio is our specialist here with A&E, and I'll certainly let him talk more about its background. So Ignacio, are you unmuted and ready to go?
Yes, I am, Tim. How are you?
Awesome. I'm doing well, man. So Ignacio, how long have you been with Leyton?
Yeah, of course. So I've been with Leyton a little bit under a year now. Previously, I guess, we could call it my previous life. I worked for a structural engineering firm, a couple of them, specifically Thornton Massetti and Jacobs, both two, Jacobs specifically, very large Fortune 500 engineering company. My background specifically is in civil engineering, and I focused on structural. I used to design some tunnels, underground structures, and now I'm here at Leyton, and I'm looking forward to talking with as many A&E companies as I can.
Right on. No, awesome. So maybe I did talk a little bit about the process and where companies find value. So maybe double click a little bit on your role, because you're a company signs up to go to engage. They have the initial assessment call, which kind of that general scoping call, and then they're gonna really kind of from that point on dig deeper into the true activities that you specialize in figuring out. Maybe talk a little bit about your role in that process of building out that value and translating it into an R&D tax credit.
Yeah, of course. So the way that our business model works essentially is that we approach a company, any sort of client in any industry, at what we like to call like a two-pronged approach, meaning the technical side of things as well as the financial/tax side of things. Of course, I'm in the technical side of things. And so I focus specifically on speaking with clients about their projects. And so due to my background in the A&E world, I'm able to speak that language, right? So talk that jargon and then understand that there are different, I guess let's call it the specifics for each industry. And so coming from that side of things, I'm able to kind of pinpoint the specifics as to where R&D might occur and where it might not. And so we see all kinds of companies at all different stages, all different types, let's call them like both architecture, engineering, contractors in some cases as well, for which we're able to assess each one individually. And then one of the main things that I like to point out for this particular industry is that there's a lot of time tracking. And so because of that, we're able to look at different phases of different projects. And so I'm right there at the front and center, talking with clients about their specific projects, what they did at each specific phase, and kind of understand the way, like the timeline and the way that a project evolves.
No, that's super helpful. I think it'd be great to hear of like an example, maybe a recent success story of, oftentimes we talk to a company that you never looked at it before, heard about the R&D tax credit. Do you have an example of, an engagement process that you thought was, not only educational, but then of course, beneficial financially to a firm we've worked with recently?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. And one of the more recent examples that we had a small engineering consultancy come through, I think about a couple of months ago now. It's about 4 people, 4 engineers working in structural and MEP based out of California. And so the unique part aspect of this is that their tax deadline was approaching. And so, we work towards that, and we work to make sure that not only we deliver that, but we do it as best as possible. While on top of it, we understand that you have a business to run, you have billable projects to get to. There's bids that have to be done. You have a business to run, as I was saying, and so we want to be as less intrusive as possible. But we also want to make sure that we do a thorough job, and that we connect, whether it's by emails, by calls, and so in the end, we're able to turn this around within a month, I'd say, approximately. And so it was pretty efficient. The client was very helpful, provided documentation, both in the technical as well as the tax side. And in the end, it worked out very well for both of us.
Nice. That's awesome. And when it comes to the value, I know, I've been on a few calls and they, clearly we've talked about kind of the design phases of, where this kind of drives value. Maybe talk a little bit about, that, what you see in terms of the back end of with A&E firms that, design phases that are, where there's more value maybe than other areas. And then, some of the kind of the aha moments that you kind of find with clients as they go through the process and realizing how much, sometimes they find out how much more was there than they actually realized. So I'd like to hear, maybe share with us a little bit about, kind of your process going through the iterations of design and where the claims find value.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think that's a very fair point, and that where we see the value, right? All of this comes down to as to where are the dollars, where are we trying to optimize as much as we can for our clients, right? And we see most of that in terms of like where we can extract that R&D in those design phases. It's one of the, let me preface this by saying it's one of the best parts about the job here is that we get to talk to companies across the all different industries with all different types of, they're very niche to very broad at what they do. And so it's great to be able to speak to those people, those professionals about what they do. And so in terms of how that applies to the AEC industry, where the value is that, we have to assess each one individually. And where we see the value coming here in terms of R&D is a lot of it does come to where the design is happening. So, for we just call it like the SD and BD and CD phases, right, for architecture. And engineering is maybe do like by percentage. So maybe it's like 30% design, 60% design, 90% design, and so on, before it gets sent out for bid, and then it ultimately gets constructed. And so there's different companies that do a lot of design heavy work, and there's a lot of companies that do, let's call it like inspection type work or more construction administration type work. And so it does come down to like a case by case basis. It's very hard to be able to have a blanket statement to say this company will 100% qualify, this company will 0% qualify, right? And so that's I think the best part about it, that we're able to talk to multiple types of people, all different types of work that they do, and it's very exciting. And everyone's proud of their work, and so that's great to talk about it. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that in those design stages, you're looking at particular, let's call it like a building or a structure that you're looking to design to turn into a client. You hand them a set of deliverables in the form construction documents or drawings, as well as specifications, calculations. And that process in and of itself, inherently, there is R&D being done in the sense of you are going through different alternatives, whether it's evaluating different materials, different geometries. You're trying to find the most efficient way in terms of like cost savings as well. That's one of the key things that I remember from the industry. That's like always keeping the budget in mind, the billable hours in mind. And so it's coming to that. You have a lot of different constraints coming from all the different directions. And so that's kind of where the inner professional comes out and says, all right, I have to look into different options. I have to look at different alternatives in order to eliminate that uncertainty. That uncertainty meaning I'm not sure what that project will look like at the end. I'm not sure what the structural components, the mechanical systems will be. I'm unsure about let's call it the glazing of the building, for example, like what the specifications will call for. And so it's that process inherently where there is a lot of R&D.
No, that's helpful to know. What do you see in terms of like, we mentioned before some of the, and we run into a lot in California, and I know it's in, most states now, but when we look at like kind of like environmental studies that come up or that lead certifications, how does that kind of play into the process for determining, how is that going to be calculated into a potential claim for a firm?
Yep. So the way that I understand it from this is that let's call it for architecture company, it's supposed to be the engineering piece. They're kind of in charge of having like the checklist, like the lead checklist, for example. And then through that, they work with other consultants. Maybe they subcontract them out. Maybe they work with them not on a contractual basis, but rather they're still part of the design team. And so every design, let's call it, the structural design affects the mechanical, which affects the architectural. And so it's an everlasting process as to how you're able to optimize the material, like the glazing, for example, for the building. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. No, that is, in terms of just the, from your perspective, I know we get asked a lot, when should I claim? When should I look at it? Is my firm too small? What's kind of your feedback in general to, and, knowing what you know about some of the claims you've been a part of in terms of advice to the companies that, been around, have a track record, run a pretty tight ship, coming on time on their fixed costs bids. But what would you recommend in terms of, when to look at R&D tax credit and why?
Yeah, of course. So I'd say that there's no firm that's too small. We've had clients come through that it's one individual person, and a lot of what they do qualifies just because they're that one person going into and handling everything, right? And so with that comes how much time did you spend projects versus the marketing, the proposals, etc. That's kind of that's part of the whole process of our engagement. Looking at the time tracking if there is something like that. And so I'd say that, no firm is too small, definitely. And it's definitely worthwhile to look into it, especially with us. I think that our business model and our two-pronged approach makes that a very efficient way. And going back to what I was saying is that, above all, we understand that you have a business to run, and specifically R&D tax credits might not be at the top of the list. But maybe afterwards, after you see that benefit that it might bring to the company and how you can grow from it, it will become one of the things you look forward to every year in terms of how you can use that to your advantage, and so on.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And just kind of as a kind of final thought, in terms of the deliverables, you mentioned knowing what you can claim every year. So how do you see as like our technical report, our deliverables, benefiting the firms on a annual basis going forward? After the engagement with Leyton, how do you see what we do in terms of that feedback and that analysis and that report as a framework for future claims?
Yeah, of course. So that first engagement, in terms of that first time that we engage with a company, that we do typically the look back of 3 years. That's when let's call it the most time intensive will be done on both parties, right? But even then, again, we're trying to be as less intrusive as we can in order for you to run your business. But we want to get this as a priority as well. And so that first engagement, to lack better words, the most challenging in quotations, but at the same time, it's very exciting. We're looking to a new process. And then from there, we're able to optimize it moving forward. We're able to, to make sure that along, the next year, along the way, we're able to keep in touch, with the client as well as the client with us, maybe by phone call, by emails, like, should I be doing this? Should I be charging this way? What can I do better, right? And so building that relationship is crucial for us as well, so that when the time comes for filing the taxes, we want to be able to, have it deliverable ready, for you and for the clients, of course. And then what that means for us in terms of the deliverable is, we provide the financial documents for the tax filing, and then we also provide a technical report, which basically outlines the engagement in terms of like what qualifies for R&D for the Internal Revenue Code, and how that specifically applies to the company based on the activities and the projects that we discuss, and of course the documentation that is being provided. So that's ultimately how our engagement goes, and we've had great success with it so far, and we're always looking for a lot of clients.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate you walking us through that from particularly from the insights that you have. So Ignacio, appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, but we certainly thank you for being able to come on and answer some of these questions we got, to hopefully help people understand, number one, how it works and why they might want to work with Leyton, as well as the benefits on an ongoing basis. So it's a partnership we want to create. So I really appreciate you taking the time to help educate us on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim, and look forward to speaking with you.
All right, man. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Hey, and so I have the pleasure of introducing here, Paul Hermes, who I personally worked with at TriNet. And so Leyton and TriNet are partners, and so when it comes to, it's kind of Ignacio was talking about the mechanics of delivering the information, whether it's a tax credit or payroll tax credit or standard tax credit. The nice thing is, with TriNet and the payroll support and the oversight they have in the team, and we work hand in hand again to make sure, number one, things go smoothly in terms of the process, but also the relaying the information that would be relevant for TriNet and their role with working with companies. So I certainly wanted to have a chance for Paul and also for Ben Fraden as well, to comment just a little bit about some of the work you guys are doing currently with firms. I know you guys both have had a lot of successes over the years, so you want to have you guys talk a little bit about the power of the TriNet solution for containing the HR costs and really helping businesses focus more on growth and winning new business and being successful out there. So Paul, Ben, I'll turn to you guys for a few comments here before we wrap it up.
Well, thank you very much, Tim, and it's an honor to partner with you as always and your team over at Leyton. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. My name is Paul Hermes, and I'm based in San Francisco, California, and my colleague Ben Fraden is based in Boston, Massachusetts. We work with a wide variety of architect and engineering firms along both coasts, and there are three main reasons why A&E firms partner with TriNet. Number one, they care about their employees. They want their employees and their dependents to have the best HR services and medical benefits delivered in the most cost-efficient way possible, in order to take care of their employees, their dependents, and have a great employee experience while they are employed with their firm. Number two, with TriNet, they're able to reduce their operating expenses. In other words, they're able to leverage TriNet's economies of scale in order to provide all these great HR services and medical benefits in the most cost-efficient way possible. We can deliver an entire HR infrastructure for literally pennies on the dollar, and medical benefits that are not available to them in the open market and rates that are simply not available to them in the open market. So for a small A&E firm that's about 20 employees or 30 employees or 40 employees, this is a big differentiator in helping make them the employer of choice in their region, in their industry. And number three, they want to streamline the entire HR function of their business. With TriNet, they're able to automate and autopilot the entire HR function of their business, creating both workflow and financial efficiencies. In my 14 years of doing this, every one of my A&E firms has said thank you to me after being on TriNet for 1 year. And the reason why they say thank you is because they now can't imagine operating their business without TriNet, because TriNet has been such a major positive impact, not only to their bottom line, their P&L, but also to the organization. Ben, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, Paul, great job. And again, thank you to Tim and Ignacio. I think you guys covered a lot of really great things. And I think we all know there's a number of synergies between what TriNet does and what Leyton does. And I think Paul really hit it there. Those are three huge reasons why we're really do a great job with architecture and engineering firms. And I think if I were to add anything, it would just be the fact that rather than some of the other partners out there, some of the other services that companies partner with to get some of these tasks done, there's a shift in the responsibility, and shifting some of that compliance over to TriNet is another area where we help these firms so they can focus on the revenue driving activities of their business rather than some of these administrative reactive tasks. But other than that, I think Paul, you really did a great job, and I'm looking forward to speaking with people in more depth later on.
Great. Hey, well, Ben and Paul, I really appreciate it. You guys, partnering with us on this and on a go forward basis. I agree, Ben, with and Paul. There's a lot of good synergies what we do and TriNet as well. So with that really wraps it up for us here today. We will certainly send out a link to this recording here, and everyone who registered will get an email follow-up from us. So we will certainly be able to connect if you have questions on wanting to look at TriNet. Right now is a really good time to, if you're evaluating your benefits for a 1/1 start, want to start fresh in January. A lot of companies do. Great time to look at TriNet, particularly from a benefits perspective, and all the other points that Ben and Paul talked about. And then certainly for Leyton, for us, it's also a good time to look as you wrap up 2020 and look for on a go forward basis to put that analysis together for R&D tax credit. And my contact information is up here, but certainly we'll send a follow up for future meetings, and looking forward to talking to folks on the call and folks who will be listening to this recording at some different times. So thanks again, Ignacio. Thanks, Kenise, for putting everything together, and thanks again to TriNet for being such great partners and helping us have this presentation today. So hope everyone has a great day, and hopefully talk to some of you guys soon. Thank you.